The arrival and the blade. The stars above were silent when Jack fell. His ship tore through the black sky, leaving behind a trail of fire and smoke. Sparks flew around him. Metal screamed. Inside the cockpit, alarms blared in his ears. Warning. System failure. Impact in 10 seconds. Jack gritted his teeth. His hands shook as he pulled at the controls, but it was no use. The ship was dying. He caught a glimpse of a strange planet below, glowing blue forests and dark mountains. Before everything went black, when he woke again, he was lying on cold stone. Jack opened his eyes slowly. His head throbbed, his arms and legs ached. The air smelled strange, clean but heavy, like a storm was about to come. He sat up and realized he was in a cave. The walls around him glowed faintly with blue symbols. They were not painted or carved, but seemed alive, moving softly like water. He reached out to touch one, but before he could, he heard a sound. A whisper. He turned his head and froze. In the shadows stood a figure, tall, thin, and wrapped in dark cloth. Its skin glowed faintly under the blue light. It had long arms, delicate fingers, and deep silver eyes that watched him without blinking. Jack's breath caught in his throat. The creature stepped closer, and the light revealed its face. It was beautiful. Not human, but not completely alien either. Its skin was pale and smooth, its hair long and dark like ink. But there was sadness in its eyes, a heavy kind of sorrow. Jack forced himself to speak. Who are you? For a moment, the creature said nothing. Then, in a soft, broken voice, it answered, Lyra. Jack swallowed hard. What is this place? Again, silence. Then Lyra stepped even closer. In her hands, she carried something wrapped in black cloth. She knelt before him and set it down between them. When she unwrapped it, Jack gasped. It was a blade, long, elegant, and strange. The metal shimmered in the blue light, almost like it was alive. Symbols like those on the cave walls ran along its edge, glowing faintly. Jack stared at it, confused. What do you want from me? He asked quietly. Lyra looked at him with her silver eyes. There were tears in them now. My father, she began, her voice trembling, was the last warrior of our kind. This blade was his. He gave his life to keep it safe. She pushed the blade closer to him. And now, she said, almost whispering, it is yours. Jack blinked at her. What? No, I don't understand. Why me? I'm just... But before he could finish, Lyra reached out and took his hand. Her touch was cold but gentle. You are human, she said simply, as if that explained everything. Jack looked down at the blade. Slowly, almost without thinking, he wrapped his fingers around the hilt. The moment he touched it, the cave changed. The symbols on the walls flared brighter, filling the space with a soft, humming light. The blade itself glowed stronger now, sending warmth through his hand, up his arm, into his chest. He could feel it, like the blade was alive, and it had been waiting for him. Jack stumbled back, letting go for a second, but the blade stayed in his hand, as if it refused to be dropped. Lyra watched him, her tears slipping silently down her face. You are the one, she said quietly. Jack shook his head. No, I don't even know what this is. Why would you give it to me? Her voice broke then. Because my father believed only a human could wield it. Only a human could stop what is coming. Jack stared at her, his heart racing. What's coming? He asked. Lyra didn't answer. Instead, she stood up slowly, her long fingers brushing her own tears away. Then she turned and began walking deeper into the cave. Wait, Jack called after her. You can't just leave me here. She stopped but didn't turn around. When? You are ready, she said softly. Follow the light. The blade will guide you. And with that, she disappeared into the shadows. Jack stood there, his chest rising and falling quickly. He looked at the glowing blade in his hand, then at the strange symbols on the walls. Everything inside him screamed to drop the weapon and run. But something in the blade and in her eyes made him stay. He tightened his grip and whispered to himself, "Why me?" The blade pulsed in answer, as if it was alive. From deeper in the cave, he thought he heard something. A faint growl, low and dangerous, echoing through the darkness. Jack took a deep breath, holding the blade tighter, and he stepped forward. Asterisk. The alien story, the cave grew darker. As Jack followed the faint blue light, the blade in his hand hummed, softly as though it was breathing. Every time he stepped too far from the glowing symbols on the walls, the blade glowed brighter, pulling him back onto the right path. But Lyra was nowhere to be seen. The sound of his footsteps echoed in the silence. Sometimes he thought he heard whispers just out of reach, like the walls themselves were speaking to him. You are the one. He chose you. Only you. Jack tried to block it out, gripping the blade tighter. The path twisted and narrowed, and the air became heavy. The glow from the walls faded until only the blade lit his way. After what felt like hours, the path opened into a massive chamber. Jack stopped at the threshold. Stunned. The chamber was enormous, a cathedral of stone and light. Tall pillars, covered in strange symbols, reached up into darkness. Blue crystals floated in the air, spinning slowly, shedding a ghostly glow across the floor. And in the center stood Lyra. She was kneeling before a tall stone monument. On its surface were carved countless names and symbols, some of them cracked and broken. Her head was bowed, her hands resting on her knees. Jack walked forward cautiously, the sound of his boots echoing louder than he liked. When he was only a few feet away, Lyra finally spoke, her voice quiet but sharp. "You should not have followed me." Jack swallowed, but didn't step back. "You told me to," he said. "You said the blade would guide me." Lyra raised her head and turned to face him. Her eyes were wet, her expression hard. "It did," she said coldly. "But you should not be here yet," Jack frowned. "Why? What is this place?" Lyra stood slowly, her dark robes falling around her like water. She turned back to the monument and touched one of the names carved into the stone. "This," she whispered, "is the Hall of the Fallen." Jack looked around the chamber again and realized the names on the monument stretched higher than he could see. There were thousands, maybe millions. All of them, Lyra continued, her voice cracking slightly, died fighting the Devourers, and my father was the last of them. Jack watched her in silence. "My people," she said, "were once proud. We ruled the skies. We were warriors, protectors. But the Devourers came from the stars, and they destroyed everything." She clenched her fists at her sides. "They eat worlds," she hissed. "They do not conquer. They do not enslave. They devour. Every planet they touch becomes nothing but ash and silence." Jack's stomach turned as he pictured it. Lyra finally looked at him again, her silver eyes burning. "My father," she said, "was the last warrior to stand against them. He carried this blade, the blade you now hold. He fought until his blood stained the stars." Jack lowered his gaze to the weapon in his hands. The metal shimmered faintly, as though remembering her father's touch. Lyra stepped closer now, her voice dropping lower. "He believed," she whispered, "that a human, not one of us, would be the one to finish the war." Jack blinked at her, confused. "But why? Why me? Why a human?" Lyra's eyes softened, though her tears still fell. "Because," she said simply, "humans are different. You fight even when there is no hope. Even when all reason says to stop, you keep going. Jack laughed bitterly. That doesn't sound like enough to save a galaxy. Lyra tilted her head, studying him. It is more than you know, she murmured. But before Jack could reply, the chamber shook. The floating crystals trembled. Dust fell from the ceiling. Jack turned quickly. What was that? He asked, his voice tense. Lyra's face hardened. They have found us, she said. A deep, guttural roar echoed through the chamber. Then another. Jack's pulse quickened as the glow from the walls began to fade, and shadows crept closer from the corners of the chamber. From the darkness came creatures, long, black, crawling on too many legs. Their skin shimmered like oil, their eyes burning red. Jack raised the blade instinctively, and it flared with light so bright the beasts hissed and backed away for a moment. Lyra moved beside him, pulling a small dagger from her robes. They are scouts, she whispered. They come before the devourers, to make sure nothing survives. Jack swallowed hard. How many? He asked. Lyra's lips pressed into a thin line. Too many, she admitted. The nearest beast lunged at him, and Jack swung the blade. It cut through the creature with a sound like glass shattering. He stumbled back, shocked, but the blade felt warm, almost pleased. More of the beasts began crawling down the pillars, hissing and snapping. Lyra grabbed his arm. You must run, she said firmly. The blade will guide you out. If they catch you, no, Jack interrupted, shaking his head. Lyra stared at him. I'm not leaving you here, he said. For a brief moment, her expression softened. You are foolish, she murmured. Jack tightened his grip on the blade, stepping in front of her. Yeah, he said. But you said humans don't stop. So let's see if you were right. The chamber shook again as more creatures poured from the darkness. Lyra raised her dagger, standing at his side. For the first time, Jack thought he saw a faint smile on her lips, sad but proud. Then we fight, she whispered. The blade hummed brighter in Jack's hands as the beasts charged, and he took his first step toward the war. The chamber burned with blue light as Jack swung the blade. One of the black creatures shrieked as the sword sliced through its body. The sound was sharp, like metal tearing. The creature's glowing red eyes faded before it collapsed into ash. But more of them came. Hundreds, crawling down the pillars, bursting from cracks in the stone, filling the hall of the fallen with hissing and growling. Jack's breathing grew heavy. He tightened his grip on the blade. His knuckles turned white, but he refused to let go. Beside him, Lyra fought with her dagger, graceful and quick. She moved like water, her dark robes flowing, her blade striking true. But even she could not hold them back for long. They just keep coming. Jack shouted. Lyra didn't look at him. Her silver eyes stayed on the beasts as she cut another one down. They won't stop, she said flatly. Not until we're dead. The floor beneath them shook violently, and several cracks split open. From below, a deafening roar rose, deeper and more terrifying than anything Jack had heard before. He froze for a second. What the hell is that? Lyra's face hardened. The Devourer's hound, she whispered. They have sent it to hunt us. As if answering her, the air turned cold. The blue glow of the chamber dimmed. Even the smaller beasts stopped their attack and slithered back into the shadows. A silence fell. Then it appeared. At the far end of the chamber, a massive shadow emerged from the darkness. A creature so big it had to crouch to fit inside the hall. Its body was covered in black armor that glistened like oil. Its head was shaped like a wolf's, but with too many eyes, each one glowing blood red. Its breath came out in thick clouds of steam, and its claws scraped sparks from the stone. Floor. Jack swallowed hard. That's a hound? Lyra's voice was quiet but sharp. Run. Jack turned to her in shock. What? We can fight? Run! The hound roared, and the sound shattered several of the floating crystals above them. They crashed to the ground, filling the air with shards of glowing glass. Without waiting, Lyra grabbed Jack's arm and pulled him toward a narrow tunnel on the side of the hall. They ran. The sound of claws, scraping stone followed them. Heavy, fast, unrelenting, the blade in Jack's hand flared brighter now, lighting the path ahead as the cave walls twisted and narrowed. The tunnels were a maze. Blue light flickered on the walls, showing passages splitting and curving in impossible directions. Jack stumbled as the ground shook behind them. He glanced back. The hound was close now, forcing its massive body through the tight tunnel, tearing stone apart to reach them. Where does this go? He gasped. Lyra didn't look at him. Out, if the blade wills it? Jack gritted his teeth. If the blade wills it? That's your plan? Another roar answered him, closer this time. He didn't argue anymore. He ran faster. The path split. Ahead, 2 tunnels. One sloped upward and glowed faintly. The other was darker, quieter. Jack stopped. Which way? Lyra glanced at the blade in his hand. It glowed brighter toward the darker tunnel. Lyra nodded. The blade has chosen. Before Jack could protest, another roar shook the air, and a huge claw smashed through the wall of the left tunnel. Without another word, they darted into the right tunnel, the dark one. The ground became uneven, and sharp rocks cut at Jack's boots. He stumbled, but kept going. The walls here were tighter, the ceiling lower, and the air colder. Behind them, the sound of the hound grew louder. Closer. Jack risked a look back and saw one of its glowing red eyes peeking through the crack. It was too big to fit all the way, but it was forcing its way through anyway, stone cracking around it. Lyra! Jack called out. It's not stopping. She glanced back, her face pale but her eyes calm. They never stop, she said simply. Jack growled under his breath, pushing himself faster. Then, ahead, the tunnel opened into another cavern, smaller, but filled with strange crystal formations that sparkled faintly. In the center of the cavern was a pool of black water. Lyra stopped abruptly. Jack almost crashed into her. Why are we stopping? She pointed at the pool. The blade brought you here, she said. It wants you to see. Jack stared at the water. It was perfectly still. Then it began to glow. Blue shapes appeared on the surface. A map. Stars. Planets. But everywhere the blackness spread across the map, consuming the stars, one by one. Jack watched as the blackness crept closer and closer to one particular star, and then stopped. The blade in his hand flared brightly and hummed louder. Almost urgent, Lyra spoke softly, her voice trembling now. This is what is coming. This is what you must stop. Jack shook his head, his voice low. I can't fight that. I'm just one man. Lyra looked at him, her eyes wet again, but fierce. You are more than you think. My father believed it. The blade believes it. Before Jack could reply, the hound's roar shook the cavern so hard that dust fell from the ceiling. The wall behind them cracked open, and a giant claw burst through. Red eyes glared at them through the hole, full of hunger and rage. Jack raised the blade instinctively as Lyra stepped closer to him. The blade glowed even brighter now, humming louder, like it was alive and ready. Lyra whispered, If you want to live, you must trust the blade. Jack swallowed hard and nodded. Then the hound lunged through the wall, shattering the cavern, and Jack stepped forward with the blade, blazing like a star in his hands. The chase was over. The fight was about to begin. The betrayal. Jack stood his ground, the blade blazing like a sun in his hand. The hound lunged. It filled the cavern, its massive body tearing through stone and crystal, claws striking sparks off the floor. Its red eyes locked on him, and its roar shook the air like thunder. Jack raised the blade and swung with all his strength. A brilliant arc of light slashed across the cavern, and the hound shrieked, a deafening, unnatural sound that rattled. Jack's bones. The creature stumbled back. Its black armor cracked and smoking where the blade had cut it. But it wasn't dead. It growled low and circled them, its claws digging into the stone. Jack's chest heaved, his arms trembling, but he tightened his grip on the blade. Beside him, Lyra raised her dagger, her silver eyes hard. "We can't kill it here," she said quietly. Jack shot her a glance. "Oh, great timing for that information. So what do we do?" Lyra's eyes stayed on the hound. "We run." Before Jack could argue, she grabbed his arm and pulled him toward another tunnel. They sprinted through the darkness, the sound of the hound crashing through stone behind them. The blade glowed bright, lighting their path as the walls twisted and narrowed. At last, they burst out into the open air. Jack stumbled and froze. They were standing in a vast forest of crystal trees. The ground sparkled faintly, and above them, 2 moons hung low in the sky, casting a pale silver light. It should have been beautiful, but Jack didn't have time to admire it. The hound's roar still echoed behind them. Closer now, Lyra grabbed his shoulder, forcing him to focus. "This way," she said sharply. They ran through the forest, weaving between towering crystal trunks that hummed faintly as they passed. Jack could feel the ground trembling under the weight of the hound chasing them. At last, they reached a narrow crevice at the base of a cliff. Lyra stopped and pressed her hand against a hidden panel in the rock. A faint light flashed, and a hidden door slid open. She turned to Jack. "In here. Hurry." Jack ducked inside without question. The door closed behind them with a soft hiss, and for the first time in what felt like hours, the roar of the hound faded into silence. Jack leaned against the wall, trying to catch his breath. "Okay," he panted. "What now?" But Lyra didn't answer. When Jack looked up, he saw her standing a few feet away, her back to him. "Lyra?" She was quiet for a long moment. Then she finally spoke, her voice low. "You fight well," she said. Jack frowned. Thanks, I guess." Something in her tone made his stomach tighten. Lyra turned slowly, and Jack froze. Her silver eyes were cold now, and there was no sadness in them. Only resolve. In her hand was a small black crystal, glowing faintly. Jack straightened, the blade in his hand flaring slightly. "What's that?" he asked cautiously. Lyra stepped closer. "It's called a mark," she said. "It calls them to me. The hounds. The devourers." Jack's eyes widened. "You," he began, his voice barely above a whisper. "You've been leading them to me?" Lyra's face softened just a little, but she didn't deny it. "I had no choice," she said quietly. "They hold my people, the few who survived, in cages. If I did not deliver you, they would kill them all." Jack took a step back, the blade glowing hotter in his hand. "You used me," he said bitterly. "You let me fight for you, risk my life, while you led me into a trap." Lyra flinched at his words, but didn't look away. "I didn't want to," she whispered, "but I must save them." Jack shook his head. "And what about me? You hand me over to them, and then what? Do you really think they'll spare your people after that?" Her hand trembled slightly around the black crystal. "I have to try," she said. Jack's grip on the blade tightened. He could hear faint rumbling outside now, the sound of more hounds approaching. He stared at her, anger and betrayal burning in his chest. "You could have told me," he said, his voice sharp. Lyra's lips pressed into a thin line. "And what would you have done?" she asked. Jack didn't answer. For a long moment, the two stood there in silence, the only sound the low hum of the blade and the faint cries of the hounds outside. Finally, Lyra lowered her gaze. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she said. She raised the black crystal and pressed it to the wall. A hidden panel slid open, revealing a small passage that led deeper into the rock. "They will come soon," she murmured. "If you want to live, follow the blade. It will guide you." She turned and stepped toward the door, but Jack's voice stopped her. "Why are you telling me this now?" Lyra paused, her back still to him. "Because," she said softly, "even after everything, I don't want you to die." And with that, she walked through the doorway and disappeared into the shadows. Jack stood there, gripping the blade, his chest tight. Outside, the howls of the hounds grew louder, closer. He looked down at the glowing sword in his hand and whispered to himself, "So it's just me now." The blade pulsed faintly in answer, as if it understood. Jack took a deep breath, turned toward the dark passage, and stepped forward, ready to face whatever waited ahead. But in the darkness behind him, a faint whisper echoed, chilling and cruel. "Human, the hunt begins." The truth Jack ran. The dark passage twisted and narrowed, the blade in his hand casting eerie blue light on the jagged walls. Every step echoed behind him, bouncing into silence. But it wasn't just his footsteps anymore. He could feel it. A presence in the shadows, watching, following, whispering. "Human, you cannot hide. You were always meant for this." Jack gritted his teeth and kept going, his breaths quick and sharp in the cold air. He didn't know how long he ran. Minutes? Hours? Time had lost all meaning here. At last, the passage opened into a vast chamber. Jack stumbled to a stop, gasping. It was unlike anything he had seen before. The cavern walls were covered in glowing threads, strands of light that stretched into the distance like a web. They pulsed faintly, as if alive. In the center of the chamber was a raised platform made of black stone, and chained to the platform was Lyra. Jack froze. Her dark hair hung over her face, her silver eyes dim. Her wrists were bound by black, crystal chains that glowed faintly with the same red light he'd seen in the hound's eyes. She looked up slowly when she sensed him, her voice barely a whisper. "You weren't supposed to come here." Jack stared at her, fury and confusion boiling in his chest. "You betrayed me," he said flatly. Lyra's lips trembled. "Yes." He stepped closer, the blade flaring brighter in his hand. "You led me into a trap. You handed me over to them." Lyra closed her eyes. "I did what I had to." Jack stopped a few feet from her, his jaw tight. "So what is this? Another trick?" Her eyes opened at that, and for the first time he saw no coldness, no defiance, only sorrow. "No," she whispered. "This is the truth." Jack blinked, confused. Lyra nodded faintly toward the threads of light stretching along the walls. "This," she said, "is the heart of the world, the last living memory of my people. Every thread is a soul." Jack glanced around, feeling a strange heaviness in the air. "Why bring me here?" he demanded. Lyra's lips curved into a faint, sad smile. "Because you deserve to know what you are fighting for." Jack frowned, but stayed silent. Lyra lowered her gaze. "My people," she began quietly, "were not just warriors. We were keepers of the threads, protectors of life itself. When the devourers came, we fought to defend this place. But we failed." She pulled weakly at her chains. "They killed my father, took my people, and they chained me here. Because I am the last keeper, the last key to unlock this heart." Jack's stomach twisted. They're using you?" Lyra's voice cracked. "They made me believe I could save my people if I helped them capture you, but it was a lie. They only wanted the blade." Jack stepped closer, gripping the blade tighter. "Why? What does it do?" Lyra looked up at him, her silver eyes shining faintly in the dark. The blade, she whispered, is not a weapon, not only. It is a key. My father sealed this heart with it before he died. And only the one who can wield it, a human, can open it again? Jack's eyes widened. Open it? Why? Her lips trembled. To destroy it. Jack froze. What? Lyra nodded faintly, tears sliding down her cheeks. The devourers cannot consume what is whole, so they break worlds from the inside. They need you to unseal the heart, so they can finally destroy it. Jack staggered back, his mind reeling. So all of this, he said hoarsely, all of it, was to make me do their work for them. Lyra looked away, ashamed. I thought if I helped them, they would spare my people, but they were already dead. Long ago. Silence hung between them. Jack's hand trembled on the hilt of the blade. He stared down at it, this beautiful, strange thing that pulsed faintly in his grip. For the first time, he wondered if it was alive. And if it hated him. Lyra's voice broke the silence. You can still leave, she said quietly. Run. Hide. They will chase you, but they cannot reach the heart without you. Jack's jaw clenched. That's not an option, he said finally. Lyra's eyes met his, surprised, but faintly hopeful. You're still going to fight? She asked softly. Jack stepped closer to her and raised the blade. I didn't come this far to run now, he said. The blade flared brightly, as if agreeing. But before he could strike her chains, the air grew cold, the threads of light along. The walls began to darken, one by one. From the shadows behind the platform, a figure emerged. It was tall, wrapped in black armor that shimmered like liquid. Its face was hidden behind a jagged mask, but its eyes, endless pits of red, glowed with cruel amusement. Its voice was low and sharp, echoing through the chamber. Human, it said, you have done well to come this far. But the game ends here. Jack turned slowly, the blade raised. Who are you? He demanded. The figure tilted its head. I am the first of the devourers, it said simply. And soon, the last thing you will ever see. It raised a long black spear, and the threads of light around the chamber began to shiver violently. Jack glanced at Lyra, still chained, her face pale. He tightened his grip on the blade, stepping forward. I don't care who you are, he said, his voice steady now. The figure's red eyes narrowed. You should. Jack raised the blade higher, because I'm not giving you what you want. The figure laughed, a horrible, hollow sound, and the chamber began to shake, cracks forming in the platform beneath them. Lyra's voice called out faintly. Jack, the blade, listen to it. Trust it. Jack gritted his teeth, the blue. Light from the blade spilling across the darkness. And as the devourer stepped closer, Jack whispered under his breath, Then show me what to do. The blade pulsed once, brighter than ever, and the whole chamber flared with light, and the battle for the heart of the world began. The battle. The chamber of the heart shook as the devourer stepped forward. Its black armor rippled like liquid shadow, and the air around it grew cold and heavy. The glowing threads of light that stretched across the walls dimmed as its red eyes locked on Jack. But Jack didn't back down. He held the blade tight in both hands. The blue light burned brighter, humming like a storm trapped in metal. The devourers. Hollow voice cut through the silence. You still hold it, it said. You still think it will save you. How human to hope. Jack narrowed his eyes. It hasn't failed me yet, he replied. The devourer tilted its head slightly, almost amused. Then let me show you what failure feels like. It lunged out. The speed was shocking. One moment it stood still, the next. It was upon him, its black spear slicing through the air. Jack barely managed to raise the blade in time. The two weapons clashed with a sound that shook the cavern, sending cracks spidering through the stone floor. The force of the blow sent Jack sliding back. His arm screamed with the effort, but he didn't let go. The blade flared in his hands, and he pushed forward, swinging at the devourer's side. Blue light clashed against black shadow. Sparks rained down, and the air filled with the sound of cracking stone and tearing metal. Around them, the threads of light began snapping one by one, their energy draining into the darkness. Jack gritted his teeth. Every strike from the devourer sent a wave of cold through him, but the blade burned hotter in response. As if shielding him. Behind them, Lyra struggled against her chains, shouting over the roar of battle. Jack, the heart, you must protect it. Don't let it take the blade. Jack's chest tightened at her words, but he didn't have time to answer. The devourer spun its spear and struck the ground. The stone beneath them exploded, sending Jack flying into the wall. He crashed hard, the breath knocked from his lungs. Devourer advanced slowly now, its voice calm and cruel. You cannot win, it said. You were never meant to. The blade is not your weapon. It is your burden. Jack forced himself up, wiping blood from his lip. Then let me carry it. He growled. The blade flared again, responding to his resolve. The devourer paused, tilting its head slightly. Its first sign of uncertainty. Jack charged. The blade struck the devourer's armor, and for the first time, it cracked, blue light spilling. Into the black like lightning in a storm, the devourer roared in rage and swung wildly. But Jack ducked and slashed again. Each strike grew stronger now, the blade's light blinding, forcing the darkness back. Lyra's chains began to glow faintly, as though feeding on the energy of the fight. She cried out again. Jack, you're weakening it. Don't stop. But Jack was already moving. He pressed forward with everything he had, each step heavier than the last, each breath harder. The devourer's strikes became wild and desperate, its red eyes burning brighter. You cannot kill me. It howled. I am the first. I am the end. Jack's blade met its chest again, and this time the crack split wider, the black armor falling away to reveal a core of burning shadow. The devourer staggered back, for the first time showing fear. Jack raised the blade high. For your father, he whispered. For her people, for mine. He drove the blade straight into the core. The cavern exploded with light. For a moment, everything went silent. Then the shadows screamed, a sound like thousands of voices crying out at once, and the devourer fell, its body crumbling into ash that scattered into the air. Jack collapsed to his knees, the blade dimming, slightly but still warm in his hands. The silence that followed was deafening. The threads of light on the walls began to glow brighter now, their hum returning. Slowly, Jack turned to Lyra. Her chains shattered as the last of the devourer's energy faded, and she collapsed to the floor. Jack crawled to her, helping her sit up. Her silver eyes met his, shining faintly through her tears. Did it, she whispered. Jack managed a faint smile. We did it, he corrected, but Lyra shook her head weakly. No, she murmured. You, the blade. It shows well. Jack looked at the blade still in his hand. It hummed softly, almost, as if it was alive, proud of him. But before he could answer, the ground trembled again. Jack stiffened. What now? Lyra's face darkened, her voice barely audible. This was only the first, she said. Jack froze, staring at her. What do you mean? She looked at the threads of light around them, which now glowed brighter than ever. There are more, she whispered. The devourers are many. This was just their hound, their shadow. The others, they're already coming. Jack's grip on the blade tightened. The faint hum of the threads became louder now, as if warning him. He stood slowly, helping Lyra to her feet. Then we fight again, he said quietly. Lyra looked at him with something like awe and a little hope. Yes. she said softly. We fight again. From deep in the tunnels beyond the chamber, a faint, guttural roar echoed, louder than anything before. Jack raised the blade, its blue light flaring strong again. And with a grim smile, he whispered to himself, Let them. Come. Asterisk the gift. The roar shook the chamber. Dust fell from the ceiling. The walls trembled. Jack stood at the center of the heart, the blade glowing bright in his hands, and watched as the threads of light above him began to quiver, then snap, one by one, as darkness crawled closer. Lyra leaned against the stone wall, still weak but on her feet. Her silver eyes were fixed on the tunnel ahead, where faint red lights glimmered in the darkness like countless eyes. They're coming, she whispered. Jack nodded, his jaw tight. Let them, he said quietly. From the shadows of the tunnel, the devourers emerged. Not one, not two, but dozens. They filled the cavern. Towering figures of black armor and red eyes, their weapons crackling with dark energy, their bodies rippling like liquid shadow. The largest one stepped forward. Taller than all the others, its mask sharper, its presence suffocating. You have delayed the inevitable, it said, its voice echoing like thunder. But you cannot stop what we are. Jack raised the blade. We'll see about that, he said. The devourers spread out, surrounding him and Lyra, their weapons raised. For a moment, the world fell silent. Then the leader gave a single nod. And the attack began. They struck as one, a wall of black shadow rushing toward Jack from all sides. The blade blazed bright in his hands, its hum rising into a roar of its own. He spun, slashing through the darkness. The closest devourers fell, their bodies splitting into ash under the blade's light. But more came. Jack fought hard, the blade guiding his movements, each strike faster and stronger than the last. Lyra, her strength returning, raised her own dagger and joined him. Together they moved like two parts of the same storm, the blue light of the blade and the silver glint of her dagger weaving between the shadows. But the devourers kept coming. No matter how many they cut down, more took their place, pressing closer and closer. Jack's arms burned. His breath came fast and shallow. The blade began to feel heavier, its glow flickering faintly now as though tiring. Lyra's voice rang out over the chaos. Jack! The heart! The threads! You must seal it before they consume it. Jack glanced up at the web of glowing threads above them and realized they were almost all gone now. Only a few strands still glimmered, holding the heart together. The largest devourer moved toward the center of the chamber, its red eyes fixed on the threads. Its spear glowed darkly, ready to strike the final blow. Jack lunged to stop it, but the creature was fast. It swung its weapon and struck Jack hard in the chest, sending him crashing into the stone floor. The blade skidded from his hands, clattering. Across the ground. Jack gasped, pain radiating through him, his vision blurring. The leader raised its spear toward the heart, preparing to strike. No! Lyra screamed. She rushed forward, slashing at the creature with her dagger, but it swatted her aside like she was nothing. Jack watched helplessly as she hit the ground and lay still. The heart began to dim, the last of the threads breaking under. The weight of the darkness. Jack's fingers scraped against the stone floor, reaching for the blade, but it was just out of reach. He closed his eyes, and then he heard it, faint but clear, a voice in his mind. Human, rise. His eyes snapped open. The blade glowed brighter where it lay, its light pulsing, calling to him. You are the one. Jack forced himself to crawl, every muscle screaming in pain. He grabbed the hilt, and the light exploded. Blade's power surged through him, filling his chest with warmth, his vision clearing. He stood, raising the blade high as it burned like a star. The devourers froze, their red eyes narrowing, Sensing what was coming, Jack turned to the heart. He understood. The blade wasn't just meant to fight. It was meant to give Dot to restore what was broken. He planted his feet, drew the blade back, and with a deep breath, drove it into the stone platform at the center of the chamber. Shock wave of blinding blue light tore through the cavern. The threads above flared back to life, weaving together faster than the darkness could tear them apart. The devourers screamed as the light struck them, their bodies dissolving into ash one by one, their red eyes winking out. The largest one staggered backward, its armor cracking, its voice breaking into a furious howl. "No, this is impossible. You cannot." Its words were cut off as the light consumed it completely. Silence fell. The light faded, leaving only faint blue threads glowing softly on the walls. Jack stood there, panting, his hands still on the blade. The weight of it all sank into him. It was over. At least. For now, behind him, Lyra stirred and slowly rose to her feet. She looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time, she smiled. "You did it?" she whispered. Jack pulled the blade free from the stone and turned to face her. "We did it," he corrected, but Lyra shook her head softly, stepping closer. "No," she said. "It was always you. My father, he saw it. The blade saw it. Even I see it now." Jack lowered his gaze, unsure what to say. Lyra reached out and placed something small and silver in his hand. Her father's insignia. It shimmered faintly. In his palm, a circle with 3 threads crossing through it. "You carry his blade now," she said, her voice full of quiet pride, "but also his hope. This world is yours to protect now." Jack stared down at the insignia, then at the blade. He felt the weight of it, and the meaning settle in his chest. Finally, he looked up at her and gave a faint smile. "Then we better get ready," he said. Lyra's smile grew. "Yes," she murmured, "because they'll come again." Jack glanced at the threads of light above, now whole again, and tightened his grip on the blade. "Let them," he said softly. And as the two of them stood there, surrounded by the faint hum of the heart, Jack raised the blade one last time, its blue glow shining bright in the quiet cavern. The hunt was over, but the war was just beginning.